Okay, so in the actual race, I don't think I've heard a louder applause, bar Lewis's double overtake at the end when Max Verstappen was slowing down. Mr. Consistent. I think Ocon probably is the next in line for Mercedes. If when Lewis does eventually hang up his gloves, or I guess his gloves, or hang up his boots as well. Yeah, hang up his boots. I don't know. Football reference.
You see the price and you think, oh, this is going to be, I don't know, but then everything you get for the whole weekend is absolutely brilliant. The experience, great race, F2, W Series, F3, everything.
Hello and welcome back to another edition of the SJMoores Podcast. Now, yeah, I know it's been about a month or so since I last did one. I've been very busy. I've been to Silverstone, which we'll talk about today. I'm about to go on holiday. I've had a couple of weeks off work and things like that as well, so I've just been enjoying myself, to be honest with you. Yeah, so we've got a lot to talk about in the Formula 1 world. That's what this podcast is about today. It won't always be about Formula 1 like it has been recently. It'll be a mix of stuff going forward. And the reason why I didn't do one in Austria as well as, in Canada as well as not being free to do one is because I think the sort of format of just going through it and me talking to myself for an hour and 20 minutes is really not working. I like it, but it takes an age to produce, and yeah, I can't do that, especially when I'm at university. There's no way I'm gonna have the time to do that from September. So we're gonna change it up a little bit. We're gonna go through a different format, hopefully get some more guests on, which is what I really wanted to do in the first place. But no, coming up in today's podcast, we're gonna go through and we're basically just gonna go talk about the midway point of the F1 season. Now we just hit halfway after the race in Austria. We're gonna start with the takeaways I have from the Canadian Grand Prix as well as the Austrian Grand Prix before we get into Silverstone with Jack in a minute, and then we are going to go through the sort of championship overview towards the end of the podcast. So obviously in Canada we had a wet quali. I watched it down the pub with my mates. It was a pretty good qualifying session. Obviously we had the thrill of Fernando Alonso qualifying on the front row. We also knew also that Charles Leclerc was going to be going from the back of the grid too because of the engine penalty that Ferrari took over the weekend. Obviously Max Verstappen was on pole, Fernando next to him, which honestly the buzz down the pub when Fernando got P2 was great. I love Fernando, that was awesome. Obviously the two Haas's qualified 5th and 6th then as well, and Sergio Perez a 13th after a problem in qualifying that may have pretty much set up the now meme with Sergio Perez exploring the jungle, going through the sort of man-made island, the Ile de Notre Dame, where the Canadian Grand Prix track is in Montreal. We got to see that little bit of that Perez walking through the green area sort of meme at the moment, which was back to the pit lane. That was really funny. So in the race anyway, the two Haas's dropped back early. Obviously they were sort of out of position. That's what you get all the wet quality sometimes. As with Fernando Alonso, as expected, Carlos Sainz got free pretty easily. Kevin Magnussen of Haas's race actually got even worse after that as well, because he had to do an early pit stop after getting a bit of front wing damage after a tussle with Lewis Hamilton on the start. Sergio Perez, who obviously had the problem qualifying, he had that gearbox issue on about lap 8, setting up the VSC, stopping on the track. That allowed Max Verstappen to come in, the race leader. Carlos Sainz, who came second, he decided to stay out, so obviously just do whatever Max didn't do. But on lap 19, we saw the second VSC, which saw Max Verstappen stay out and Carlos Sainz come in. Sainz actually getting the same cheap stop that Verstappen did just 11 laps later, hoping to catch him on faster tyres towards the end of the race. The further we went in that race in Canada, it turned out that it would be a 2-stop rather than a 1-stop. So on lap 44, Verstappen, who was struggling with his tyres, came in. On lap 49, Carlos Sainz lucked into the safety car. That one was set up by, I think it was Sonoda, the safety car, I'm pretty sure, in Canada, but I can't remember, it was ages ago. So Carlos Sainz took advantage of that, not getting out in front of Max Verstappen, but getting out right behind him by the time the safety car ended, obviously, allowing a spicy end to the race for the last 20 laps or so. So by the time the safety car finished, there were 17 laps left in the race, and it was Carlos Sainz on the fresh tyres ready to challenge the race leader Max Verstappen for the race win. Unfortunately for Carlos, obviously he wasn't quick enough to pass the Red Bull on the straight. It was literally just lap after lap for the last 10 laps or so, just seeing Carlos within DRS range, but not having the pace that the Red Bull has in a straight line to pass him down the back straight in Canada. And unfortunately for him, another Grand Prix that Carlos Sainz nearly won but didn't win. Apologies for the car sounds, by the way, if you can hear them, because it's 29 degrees at the moment here in the UK, which I know if you're from another country is unbelievable, but for some reason we're having a massive heat wave here. But yeah, no, so I am struggling with the hot, so I had to have the window open. I had a fan earlier, but you won't be able to hear it. But yeah, so like I was saying, another Grand Prix that Carlos Sainz nearly won, but obviously, he didn't have to wait too long to win a Grand Prix. It was a strong weekend for Lewis, like qualifying his teammate George Russell. In qualifying, he up to this point Lewis was really struggling. He came fourth in quali, and then turned that into a third place finish in the race, in his second podium of the season, Lewis it was at the time, and a disappointing race all told for Fernando Alonso, who again was just so unlucky with problems. And I mean, Esteban Ocon swooped in and got his points again. I feel so sorry for Fernando, but fair play to Ocon. He is sort of like a B-Tech Mr. Consistent. I think Ocon probably is the next in line for Mercedes if when Lewis does eventually hang up his gloves, or I guess his gloves, or I guess hang up his boots as well. Yeah, hang up his boots. I don't know, football reference, But yeah, no, so Alonso was finished P9. He was originally P7 just behind Ocon, but after a penalty after the race, he finished P9. And Charles Leclerc got to P5, by the way, as well, getting decent points from starting on the back of the grid. But yeah, that was Canada. Obviously, at that point, with that, this is where we're thinking, oh, okay, Verstappen's just going to run away with the title now. But with, it's sort of swung back in the the last couple of races we've seen Ferrari, especially Charles, come back towards Max, but it does look like Verstappen will have too much. It looks like Verstappen has too many points or too much of a big gap for Leclerc to catch him now because of the Ferrari power unit reliability issues we've had, reliability issues, and also the fact the Red Bulls have been very good on race pace all year. That probably will win Red Bull the championship. Anyway, with Canada over, obviously the next Grand Prix was a British Grand Prix at Silverstone. Obviously I went to that, and so did my mate Jack, and we're going to get into a little interview with him now, just talking about our experience at Silverstone. So without further ado, let's go talk to Jack about Silverstone. Okay, so thank you for joining me, Jack.
All right.
So we're just going to be talking about our Silverstone experience. So the first question for you, just before we get into what we exactly did over at Silverstone, what were you expecting for the weekend?
I was more expecting, I don't know, I was just wanting a good sort of first F1 experience, watch a good race, here for a little bit of good weather over the weekend, and just kind of see what the whole event as a whole was like, really.
Yeah, we were just going for the vibes, really, just having just going to watch the F1, but as we always as everyone would do, but obviously we've been our first one, we didn't know what it would be like, so it's just it's just an introduction for everyone just wondering out there what the Silverstone experience is like. This is our experience. So we stayed for the entire weekend at the Wilby Park campsite, which is about 5-10 minute walk away from the track, so it's very close. I recommend it if for next year if you are to plan to go. We got there on Thursday afternoon. We stayed for the whole weekend, so from Thursday till Monday. So we had general admission tickets for the weekend. We got there on Thursday afternoon, set up the tent. That was a disaster, but we got it set up the third time around. So that was we got there eventually. But yeah, so we went into the track on a Thursday afternoon to go have a look around for all the stuff in the evening. And within about 2 minutes of going. Walking around the track, entering at Cops, which is where the gate was for us, we saw an F1 outlet, and that was a pleasant surprise for anyone that's not been there before, knowing that there's cheap merchandise for a lot of people who can't afford the expensive merchandise, which is really good. You don't really get that at many events, so that was always nice to see. And then in the evening, went to go watch the Sky Show. We got to see the iconic space opera content from the grandstand. That was hilarious, seeing Lando get smacked in the face with a space hopper by Daniel Ricciardo. That was hilarious. I don't know, what do you think about that, Jack?
Yeah, to be honest, I was quite surprised at how much was going on the Thursday. I thought it'd be a bit sort of quiet, a bit dead, but yeah, I was pleasantly surprised by what was going on, really.
Yeah, so everybody that got a ticket on a Thursday, everyone that got a ticket for the whole weekend, you have free entry to the track on Thursday for a look around. There's entertainment going around on the track and stuff as well. In the evening, we had Example performing the main stage in the fan zone, and he was ace. I've always wanted to see Example. I've been maybe a great fan of his music, so that was really fun. Apologies for if I'm sweating, by the way, because this is was it 29 degrees today in the UK? This isn't normal. So But example was brilliant, and he probably was the best person on the whole night of all the acts. I'd probably say on the whole weekend. The acts I'd probably say he was the best one. I don't know about you, Jack, but
yeah. I think example was by far my favourite.
yeah. So Friday came. We watched all the support series practices around the track. Me and Jack went for a track walk around the. I went literally walked the entire track on the day, seeing what grandstands were the best. And in my opinion, I thought the best places for views were Luffield, which is where we watched FP2, Jack. And Club Corner especially was a very good view as well, which is where we were sat for FP1, although it was rained off. I'd always also recommend the grandstand near Cops, Stirling Grandstand, which is where we sat for F2 qualifying towards the end. And but Beckett's was a pretty good view as well. You're quite high up, although you're a little bit further away than the other views. But all those stands I would recommend getting a seat for if you are interested in getting a grandstand seat next year, I guess. Yeah, so like I said, FP1 was basically rained off, which I don't know about you, but I thought I was kind of disappointed by that.
Yeah. I was hoping for a bit of sun that day, but
the fact that FP2 was basically just jam-packed and it was warm for that was sort of made up for a little bit. Lots of running on FP2. Cars were out for the most of the session. I had a pretty good view for FP2 at Luffield as well. F2 quali was pretty good at the end of the day. We came back to the track in the evening for Segala. I thought he was pretty good. And we bought these Mercedes hats, didn't we, Jack, as well? Yeah. Me and Jack both bought these Mercedes hats. I bought the Lewis one, he bought the George Russell one. They weren't too badly priced, although the special edition George one was 60 quid. So but the Lewis one was pretty fair price. I don't know how you felt about that, Jack.
Yeah. Helped my bank account a bit, but don't matter.
Yeah, exactly. On Saturday, we were joined by our friend Lloyd, and we were in on Friday as well. So if you get general admission on the Friday or on the weekend, you get guaranteed grandstand seat for the Friday, so you can go around and walk around the track and sit wherever you want. Obviously, that wasn't the case on Saturday or Sunday, but that's a nice thing for people who are sat in general admission, that you can go and sit in the grandstands on the Friday. So that was a nice surprise. And that probably was my favourite day, having basically just not being limited to one place. But Jack, how did you feel that the Friday was pretty fun? Just everything about it?
Yeah, it was sort of Thursday. I didn't expect too much because obviously there's no sort of main qualifying or race. But yeah, getting to sit in the stands was really cool. I like that a lot.
Yeah, and then it was great, and also like the F2 quality at the end of the day was pretty good. Everything on the Friday was pretty good. If you're going just for a Friday, I recommend it. Just it's pretty cheap, and you get a whole day full of entertainment. But yeah, that's always good. On Saturday, obviously we're now general admission for the rest of the weekend. So on Friday we scoped out a spot and we found out that the Vale chicane was the best place to sit for a pretty nice view, because there's a really big hill and there's basically just below the grandstand. So we sat there on Saturday. Our friend Lloyd joined us for the day, which was really, really good. It was nice to see somebody else that we knew. We were surrounded by hundreds of thousands of people. That was nice.
Yeah.
But yeah, so we had to get to the track to get to the track early to get a good spot. And we basically just pitched up with our chairs. Although Lloyd's chairs are tiny, they're really tiny, so they were you had to like squeeze into them. But we pitched up on the chairs on the Vale chicane on the hill and started pretty much the entire day. But it was great. We saw some great action down there at the Vale chicane actually. Some support races, some some overtakes going into Club Corner. It was awesome. It was overcast in FP3, so again, that didn't really mean anything because we were expecting a wet quali, and by the time quali came, it was absolutely fucking pissing it down, wasn't it, Jack?
Yeah. The one bit of rain all day happened to come then, and it chucked it down.
We got absolutely drenched in quali, and I got a great picture that I'll put on the screen now of us, but that was hilarious. But like I said, it's the joy of Silverstone, and bring a coat, right, Jack? Bring a coat, that's all I'm saying. But overall, Lloyd loved it. He said he'll do the whole thing again with us next year, because I'm pretty sure we are going next year, right, Jack? At this point, yeah. And also the one cool thing as well for everyone, that was on Saturday night, the drivers got come onto the stage for interviews before, which is really cool. There was George and Lewis. We had Lando, Daniel. There was Latifi and Albon. All of them were on the stage on the Saturday night as well. Bastille were on the Saturday night as well, and they're pretty good. They're pretty good live. Some people were more into it than others. I wasn't really, but I think you enjoyed it, didn't you, Jack?
Yeah, me and Lloyd both enjoyed it.
And then going into qualifying, just talking about qualifying as well, seeing Carlos Sainz's first career pole live was cool. He got a nice reception as well. And here's a question for you, Jack. How did you feel seeing the performance from Go Tiffy getting into Q3?
Oh, you love to see it. That's what I'm gonna say. Love to see it.
It was, I think everyone was just collectively shocked, especially when we were sat as well. Everyone was just collectively shocked just hearing the TV get into Q3. Everyone was like, "What?" And but honestly, by the time he had the interview on the stage on the Saturday night, everybody was calling him Go TV. Like it was, everyone in the chat was calling him that. So that was a fun little joke with everyone. Nicholas Go TV, but to be fair, he had a good weekend that weekend, so he deserved it.
Right, I'm lucky not to get to points, but
exactly. Let's cut it short. Sunday was ace, but incredibly busy. When you have 400,000 people on a Sunday, all in one place, the queues are 3 times longer. It was the hottest day of the lot too, as well. I remember me and Jack fought the queue for the water fountain, which is really cool. When bear in mind, you don't have to pay for water everywhere. You can just fill up your drink and stuff like that. The events that I like that are really cool. But the queue for that was about an hour long, wasn't it, Jack? On the Sunday. But the rest of the day is Friday and Saturday. That it was really accessible to get water, so it was really good. Although we did end up spending about 20 quid on water that day because it was hot, but it was fine. The support races in the morning absolutely delivered. We saw the crash in F2 for Roy Nassani, where his life, literally right in front of us. His life was saved by the halo, basically. But that was all built up with the W Series, and no W Series Saturday. So we had the F3 race really early in the morning when we had the Porsche Super Cup race as well, before the Sebastian Vettel hot lap in Nigel Mansell's 92 Williams, which was really cool. The sound on that engine as well. I remember me and Jack just looked at each other and we were like, the sound on Nigel Mansell's engine. There you go. Was beautiful. What a sound. The national anthem from Sam Ryder was cool and different. You don't really get like a sort of rock national anthem in most races. Obviously, it's more traditional, especially the British national anthem as well. That's people get quite funny about that, so that was cool. And the air display from the Red Arrows was really cool too as well. Going over right under over the pit straight when the national anthem happened as well. So Jack, here's a question for you, mate. What are you thinking minutes before lights out on the race?
I was just hoping that the drivers that we all like, especially here in Britain, would be the ones to get on the podium.
Yeah, I know what you mean. I know what you mean.
But I was really excited. I know in the past we've had good Silverstone races. I was just hoping again that we'd get another great one.
Yeah, I mean, I did a piece recently ranking all the tracks, and I bet Silverstone's the second best track behind Interlagos. Yeah, I think it probably is. Like it delivers year in, year out. And we saw it this year. What a race. But so as the lights went out, you're just sort of glued to the screen, because where we were at the Bell Chicane, obviously, is like one of the last corners, so you just can't see anything. So you're just glued to the screen, and you can't see the timing charts either. So you can see the cars vividly, but it's just a little bit too small. So you really have no idea what's going on, and you have to listen to the commentary. And we had little radios, which were funny, but they were cool, and it allowed you to listen to the commentary, and I do recommend them. They are 14 quid, and you get to keep them as well, which are pretty cool. But no, so what I'm getting to here is, we knew there was an incident at turn 1 going into turn 2, going to Abbey and Village, but we knew there was an incident. We knew who was involved in the incident as well, because the commentary said we knew it was Russell, Albon, and Zhou Guanyu. And then the red flag came out, and he didn't, because it was so fast. You can't really see it. You don't really know what was going on.
It was what's going on for the next sort of 15-20 minutes, really.
Yeah, we weren't aware of the severity of the incident until the replay was shown after Zhou Guanyu was confirmed okay. So the feeling then of just like, okay, we think it's okay, but we don't know what's going on. And then the collective gasp from everyone when the replay was shown, and then the sudden applause when we were told that Zhou Guanyu was okay. That was a real moment. That's it. Well, what were you thinking, Jack?
That crash, it was horrific. But like you said, the kind of atmosphere that's built up afterwards and after the closure, that was absolutely brilliant.
Yeah, it was a special moment, and everyone knew that it was okay. Okay, so in the actual race, I don't think I've heard a louder applause, bar Lewis's double overtake at the end when Max Verstappen was slowing down, going into Beckett's. I don't think I've heard a bigger applause. That was a
That was a great moment.
it was hilarious, just to say. I mean, I feel bad for Max, but it's just like after everything, I think it was bound to happen. Like we thought we saw signs of that, like when we were watching the Sky F1 show live on Thursday when Max and Checo came out for their interview. Max was just getting booed all over the place, and I was like, oh no, it's gonna be a bad weekend. it's gonna go all weekend, and when Max was slowing down, I've never heard a bigger applause. So that was interesting, but I guess it's just he's like the villain to British F1 at the moment, and I'm sure he loves it as well, because I think Lewis is a villain to most Dutch fans. So I guess that's what it's like. But speaking of Lewis, he put on an absolute show.
Brilliant.
It was every time Lewis went past, the applause was like amazing. Like honestly, man, it was just Lewis is the GOAT. Obviously he's the GOAT, but like.
Yeah.
The fact that he means this much to everybody that was there as well, like it was it
was good to see him getting involved up on the main stage and all the shows in as well. It was good to see, because
he doesn't normally do that. Like you never see Lewis after the race, on the set of Sky. Like he'll be in the media pen with Rachel Brooks every week, but you won't see him do what George or Lando or anyone else does week in, week out. But he did that that weekend, and it was really like refreshing to see Lewis do that. It was a nice surprise. The safety car at the end was perfect. I mean, although it did rob Lewis off the win, it's a perfect finish. The last couple laps were just lights out. You saw everybody competing for positions, and the overtake from Lewis around both Leclerc and Perez at the time. It was two cars around Club Corner, which obviously isn't an overtaken spot normally, and that was right in front of us as well. That was a real moment. Oh, man, like I said, it was the loudest I've ever heard it. Like it was the limbs. Like I kept saying to Jack, the limbs. Like it's like it. I've been at some pretty big atmospheres in football, and it was it was up there for me. Like the limbs when that happened was incredible. But no, so obviously Carlos Sainz won the British Grand Prix, and we got to see Carlos Sainz win his first Grand Prix, which is always nice. It's like, where were you when say Carlos becomes world champion at some point, which he could do. It's entirely possible. You say, oh, where was his first win? Oh, I was there. That's a nice thing to sort of have in the bank there. But yeah, that was always good. And podium for Lewis and Checo, good performances from the two of them, especially from Checo, obviously. After his problem at the start of the race, that was great for him to come back all the way at the field, from the back to second. But yeah, when the race finished, the dash onto the track, ready for the podium, was thrilling. Like me and Jack were just sprinting down from the bottom of the Velchicane round corner to the podium, which is on the court, which is just on the edge of the pit straight. We got a very good spot. I got some great pictures down the pit straight as well. But we could have got a better stop. But I'm not gonna lie, I couldn't run anymore. It was funny, like that was all-time great moment there. But that was the dash down. But when you're carrying camping chairs and stuff around, like if we had nothing with us, I reckon we could have got a really good spot chat. But either way, it was great running down. We got a great spot to watch the podium because of where we set up. So if you want to watch the podium at the end and get on the track, I recommend the Velchicane if you're in general admission, because it is a really good spot. And it's probably the biggest spot as well for everyone to sit at. So there's a lot of room there. I mean, admittedly, it was basically full by the end, but it wasn't full till about 12 o'clock or so. So if you come in early and just what are you going to say, Jack? Sorry.
Yeah, we managed to get quite a good spot set up. As long as you're in a couple of hours before the race, you'll be fine. Yeah,
I think we got in about 8:30 on that day. So about 10 minutes or so before the F3 race. So, we sat down there for the rest of the day. Obviously, one of us getting up, one of us staying with the stuff and that. But yeah, if you get in, it's not like you have to be in at 6:30, like they say you have to in the morning, because we were fine by that because we knew where we were going to go. But yeah, it's as long as you get in by about 8:30, you should get a pretty good spot to watch the race. But, we would have stayed more on the pit straight and did like more of a track walk if I didn't want to go see Sam Ryder on the main stage. So there was a dash going to the fan zone to go watch that. He was really good as well. Obviously, he plays Spaceman in a new song which is coming out soon, which is pretty good. But he was really good as well, just as good as example in my opinion. But I got here, one of the best moments of the weekend was Lewis bringing Roscoe onto the stage at the end of Sunday night. It was like because he promised it on a Saturday, and when it happened, I was like, yes. That was great. But no, that's pretty much is it, Jack. Thank you for joining me. Just talking about Silverstone experience and So overall thoughts, just what did you think of it? Were you pleasantly surprised? And are we doing it again next year?
Oh yeah, definitely. Yeah, you see the price and you think, oh, this is going to be, I don't know. But then everything you get for the whole weekend is absolutely brilliant. The experience, great race, F2, W Series, F3, everything. Going up in the stands, the camping experience as well, like stay just 5 minutes away. All the concerts in the evening, everything there is just absolutely brilliant and definitely worth it.
I'd say I agree with you. I echo everything you said. It's great value. I would say if you want a guaranteed seat, I would pay the extra £100 or so just to get a grandstand seat, which you might do next year. But it is sort of worth the money, I guess. I was wondering to see if it is or not, and it is kind of worth, because general admission, you get a bit. Having the guaranteed seat means you can move about more and you can do all these things, but you can't do that. We had to sit down pretty much the entirety of the day. So I would probably say it probably is worth it. But even so, the general admission is great value. I totally do it again. I want to do it next year. It'd be great. Hopefully more of the boys can come with us as well, which would be good. I mean, I've been wanting to go for ages, but it's nice to have like you and Lloyd that actually wanted to come with me this time, because I would, I don't know, would have done it on my own. So it's a nice thing to experience. So thank you for coming with me, mate. And also thank you for coming on the podcast. Obviously, you've not been on the podcast for a while now, since the probably about a year or so now, when it was the Bull Ahead of days, and it's been nice to have you back. I'll probably have you on at some point as well, just to talk football, maybe a transfer window special, have a league on as well, have a nice little reunion for everyone. That'd be fun. But thank you for joining me, Jack. And let's roll on to my Austria Grand Prix kind of mini review. But so now on to Austria. Now, obviously, Austria is a sprint race, so a completely different weekend format. Obviously, that means you have the FP1 on the Friday, and we have the quali on Friday as well, before FP2 and the sprint on Saturday, and obviously the main race on Sunday. On qualifying on Friday, it was Max on pole for the sprint, obviously. But I hate the sprint weekends, as you can tell. I'm not a fan. And it was Charles Leclerc behind him, and Carlos Sainz in P3, like it has been pretty much the majority of the season at this point. Sergio Perez qualified 4th, but unfortunately for Checo, he had his lap times in Q2 and Q3 deleted for track limits, which for some reason the stewards didn't notice. I don't know how they didn't notice it when they were deleting ones from other people left, right and centre. But anyway, so Checo actually qualified P13 at the end of it because of that, of his elevating, I think it was Lando Norris at the P10 start. Obviously he got in P11 in Q2. Lewis Hamilton and both of the Mercedes were looking really quick, like they could probably challenge the Ferraris in or with one lap pace on Friday, but unfortunately both of them crashed in the qualifying session on Friday. At first it was Lewis and then George on his final push lap as well. Both were in okay positions. Lewis P9, George I think it was P5 before the Checo penalty, put in P4, but they probably could have. Maybe not for George's case, but I think Lewis probably could have been up there in P4 or 5 with him. But the Mercedes looked quick. I think the engineer here wasn't Bono, because Bono was back in the factory, but Lewis's other engineer told Lewis that he was on for like P2 or P3, so perhaps he could have been on the maybe not front row, but second row of the grid. Lewis could have been if had not crashed. But Yeah, he just set up a lot of hassle for the team, just making sure that they repair the car for FP2 on Saturday and the race obviously on sprint as well. They did, but they obviously had to use spare parts and things, and Mercedes was a little bit slower. Both of them, George and Lewis, both the two Mercedes cars were a little bit slower on the Saturday and Sunday because obviously their main parts had gone. But the sprint race, it was alright. It was a pretty good showing from Sergio Perez, getting all the way up to P5. Pierre Gasly, unfortunately, Pierre Gasly unfortunately had a pretty bad one, flying right over the top of Lewis Hamilton going into turn 1. Fernando Alonso didn't even start the sprint race because of an issue on the grid, meaning that he'd start the race in the back of the grid. And Sebastian Vettel actually got in a crash as well, so it'd be a Vettel Alonso back of the grid start for the race on Sunday. Lewis was only P8 in the race, only gaining 1 place. Struggling to compete the pace of the Hasses in the straight, really. Just shows how, that Mercedes just wasn't the car that it was on a Friday, with all the spare parts and things sort of cobbled together to create a car that would function. But yeah, just he couldn't pass the Hasses on the straight, and obviously Verstappen won the sprint race, but Charles Leclerc was catching him right towards the end, setting up an interesting story for the race on Sunday afternoon. I was going to say morning then. Oh, and also the battle between the two Ferraris, Carlos Sainz and Charles Leclerc at the start for P2 was really good as well, but ultimately probably did lose in both a couple of points in the sprint race. But it was cool to watch, and that's what the sprint race is for, isn't it? An extra race just for fun. So it was alright, but I would prefer just a normal format personally, if I'm being completely honest with you. On the actual race on the Sunday, everybody got away well, all the way up to turn 4 before an incident where George Russell and Sergio Perez had a crash that was very, very similar to the one between Albon and Hamilton in Austria in 2020. The season opener, where Albon arguably could have gone on and won his first Grand Prix of that season, and obviously his first ever Grand Prix and first and only Grand Prix with the way things turned out. But unfortunately, that was just the start of the derailing of Alex Albon's Red Bull career, that race. But I don't think that will happen to Sergio Perez. He had a strong race. I don't think that will happen to Sergio Perez. I think he's too strong for that. But and obviously he's got years of experience to him. But yeah, the Russell Perez incident, Russell sort of leaving Perez not too much space going down around the corner into turn 4 and curving down to 5, 6, and 7 and 8. Yeah, so obviously Perez ended up in the gravel and George Russell continued, but had a 5-second penalty for that. It's pretty much identical crash to the one with Hamilton and Albon in 2020. But yeah, so that happened. That was an incident, and unfortunately for Sergio Perez, that was his race over. He'd come in for a stop to go on the hard tyres to hopefully get to the end of the race. He had a massive hole in the side of his side pod though, so I don't think that would have happened, and he came in to retire only about 30 laps or so later. But yeah, so like I said, it was Verstappen who got away well, Leclerc, Sainz, P2 and P3, and on lap 8 the gap between Charles and Max was literally 5/10 and he was in DRS range, so yeah, it looked like Charles probably had the pace to win this Grand Prix. Good defending by Max, kept him ahead till lap 12. But yeah, on lap 12, the move had to be on at some point. Max felt it was going to happen, and Leclerc sent down on the inside of 4, and Max didn't really challenge him, to be fair, knowing that he could probably win with strategy rather than fighting his title rival on the track. So Leclerc into P1 on turn 4 on lap 12. We also saw a great move on Lewis Hamilton finally getting past Mick Schumacher around turn 8 of all places. Not a popular overtaking spot around Austria, you could say so. But yeah, a great move from Lewis, probably the move of the weekend, I'd say. I also say that a lot upset every podcast, but I think that probably was the move of the weekend. George Russell had a similar move as well in the race. Can't say both. Can't talk about Lewis's one without talking about George's one. George had a similar move too. But yeah, this race was a banger. It was obviously, I think Silverstone was more of a banger, but this was a really good race. And I mean, I can't lie, I was mega hungover watching this race. I was out drinking till 5 a.m. the morning before, so I had about 3 hours sleep. So I wasn't really paying much attention during this race. But from how ill I felt, it was a really good race. And I watching it again today. It backed it up, but that was a fun experience, and one I'm sure many of you guys have had at home. Obviously, I mentioned that Max could have won by strategy, and they tried something different. The Red Bull team did come in very early for a 2-stop strategy, or what we thought it was going to be a 2-stop at the time, on lap 15. On lap 25, we saw a gaggle of 5 cars battling on the way up to turn 3 and down into turn 4. Obviously, with the Lando, with the 2 Hasses, I think with the Alpine Ocon as well, and somebody else. I think it might have been Bottas. All 5 of them, all have been side by side, and obviously the very, very wide track that is Austria. You wouldn't get that in a street circuit, but that was so, that was so cool. And obviously, like we saw in Silverstone with the battle at the end, it was like 5 cars battling for P2, whatever it was, P3, sorry, or P2 and 3 and 4 towards the end of the race at Silverstone. These regulations on a sort of old school proper racing track are awesome. Maybe not around somewhere like Miami or Jeddah, although Jeddah was a pretty good race, but maybe not somewhere like Australia, which I think I'm not a fan of. I think Australia probably should be removed from the calendar. But no, on these old school tracks, the new regulations are awesome and they provide awesome racing, especially when they're at really low fuel as well. Which we saw a little bit in the sprint race as well. But yeah, it was awesome seeing the 5 cars battling at the time. A couple of laps later on, lap 27, Charles Leclerc came in. Obviously, that's many laps after Verstappen came in. 12 to be precise. So they're going for a different strategy to Verstappen, and it was up an interesting finish to the race, basically, which is what we always like. We like to see differing strategies. Races coming down to the very last few laps, and we got that this race, which is awesome. So within 6 laps, lap 33, Charles back ahead of his title rival Max Verstappen. He didn't really defend it up to turn 3. He knew that his race was going to be strategy, but Charles was just quicker on the Sunday, to be honest with you. Charles had the pace all weekend, other than pretty much all weekend. Yeah, he was faster than Max towards the end of the sprint race as well. And obviously, I think it was colder temperatures on the Sunday as well. The Red Bull struggling in temperatures that weren't as warm as they were on a Saturday and a Friday. But yeah, so Max didn't really fight up to turn 3, and Leclerc was ahead on lap 33. Both went for the 2-stop in the end, actually. So Charles not going for the 1 in the end. But it obviously didn't really matter. He was that quick, but he was ahead by quite a bit. Charles stopping on lap 53 later than Max, who stopped, I think, on lap 44 or something similar to that. It was in the 40s, I think. I can't remember, I haven't got it written down, but I think it was in the 40s. But so after they both stopped, by lap 53, Charles Leclerc was back ahead. The Ferraris were that quick that within a couple of laps, Carlos Sainz was on Max Verstappen's tail. He was, it was looking like he probably could challenge him for P2 and probably will get P2. But on lap 57, the race changed when Carlos Sainz's car had an engine failure, another Ferrari power unit failure. This time the car literally catching on fire and putting some of the marshals at risk as well. And in fact as well, like when he parked sort of on the hill up, so like down into turn 4, and there's a gravel trap and there's a hill. The top of the gravel trap, that's where Sainz pulled his car over, so it would be a VSC rather than a full safety car. But when obviously there's no handbrake on an F1 car, so when he got out of the car just started falling down. With bear in mind it was in flames at this point as well, so it was a very scary moment and something we don't really want to see again. But no, that was a close one. But yeah, that was not a great sight for Formula 1, but what I'm saying, the point here is that Ferrari, again, that at the start of the season, after Bahrain, we thought, okay, maybe Red Bull, their new, homemade power unit, per se, maybe they wouldn't be able to cope with, the reliability. Maybe, Ferrari will win it, with a more reliable car, because bear in mind in 2020 and 2021, but bear in mind last year 2021, Ferrari are very good with reliability. I know it's a new car, but we weren't expecting them to be struggling more than Red Bull after the first couple of races. But that power unit, it's not healthy. We've seen obviously with the Alphas, the Haas's, it's got to the point now where, especially as I just hit the microphone there. Yeah, it's getting to the point now where I'm just like, come on. Like, it's so frustrating because it's basically robbed us of a title battle, in my opinion. And it's robbed, Alfa Romeo. I went an Alfa t-shirt today. It's robbed Alfa points, it's robbed Haas points now. Imagine how cool the championship would be if the Ferrari unit power unit wasn't as broken as it could be, wasn't as broken as it is. Sorry, but yeah. So the Sainz incident set up a virtual safety car where both Leclerc and Verstappen came in for new tyres. Obviously, this time both on the same tyres at the same level of freshness, or both at the same. Both with new tyres. Basically, could Max close the gap on Charles when it was a VSC rather than a full safety car? So the gaps will remain the same. Could Max close the gap on Charles on fresher tyres? Obviously on the same strategy now, and challenged him for the win at the end of the race. And it was closer than I thought it would be, I can't lie. But Charles was just too quick and had Max was closing them. If it was 5 more laps, I think Max would have got Leclerc, because obviously we know that Charles was struggling with his throttle issue. Verstappen was narrowing the gap as Charles was literally getting the throttle issue where he had something stuck under there and he couldn't. It was getting very nervy. He was getting quite agitated about it, and the times were just dropping as Verstappen was getting faster and faster and faster with low fuel. Give it 5 more laps, Max probably could have won the Grand Prix. But luckily for Charles, he won his first race since Australia, which is mental to me. Obviously, Ferrari's second race win in a row, with Sainz's win in Silverstone. And his first win, this shocked me, but it's true when you go watch the Spa one, the one in Monza, the one in Bahrain. When you go back and watch all Charles Leclerc's races, it's true. He's never won a race not from pole position before. So, his first win not from pole position. A statement win for Leclerc, obviously narrowing the gap in the championship by about 7 points, 6 points, because Verstappen got fastest lap. But no, Charles Leclerc winning the Grand Prix must have been a great feeling, because it's been a long time coming for the Ferrari fans, the Ferrari team members, and also as well Charles getting revenge on Max for the 2019 race, which I covered recently on an article, going back and watching that race, because that was a cracker. That's one of the best races in recent memory in Formula 1. But no, yeah, so overall, a Ferrari win. Hallelujah for the championship. Throughout the rest of the grid, obviously Mick Schumacher got P6 in the Haas. Back-to-back points for Mick. It was amazing for him. He's, since the last couple of weeks, probably since Canada, he's become a new driver. He's been on it. Like the last 3 weeks, he's been a great driver. Obviously, being right up there with Kevin in the wet in quality. Obviously, unlucky not to get points in Canada. Obviously, after we retired. This is the driver we saw in F2 and F3, and obviously it took him a couple years in each series to actually become the driver he was. Like the first year in F2 he wasn't great, but then second year in F2, bam, wins the championship. Like exactly. You know what I mean? So I expect him to have a better second season than his first. Obviously, he actually had a strong first season, which was surprising to me. I thought obviously he's better than Mazepin, but he was okay last season. But no, this season, a bit of a hard sort of start to the season, not great, but then last couple of weeks, Mick Schumacher has been the driver we thought and knew he was when he came into Formula 1 about 18 months ago. Again, Ocon, consistent as ever, another P5 finish, getting great points for the Alpine team, who are now level 1 points for McLaren for P4 in the Constructors. Fernando 10th and back of the grid as well, obviously because of the problem. That was a great effort from him, getting that point. Again, another point for Alpine, helping in the battle with McLaren, and a good drive from Lewis Hamilton as well, coming third, his third podium in a row as well. Lewis starting to get better and better understanding of his Mercedes car, and obviously, he probably could have won in Silverstone had the safety car not come out in the end. But Lewis has really been another level recently with that Mercedes, and showing that he's not lost it, which has been great for me and for all us Brits. Obviously, I'm wearing the Lewis hat that bought Silverstone, but good drive from Lewis. Third from, I think it was 8th on the grid, and a third podium in a row, like I said. But yeah, so that's pretty much got us up to the mid-season point now. It is the mid-season point. That was the 11th race, so we've just gone past the halfway point of the race. So we've just gone past the halfway point of the season. Let's sort of just go through what we've seen so far this season with the new regulations, the new cars. I'm just going to talk about my thoughts on what we've seen this season, and what I hope to see for the rest of the season, and sort of go through a couple of the drivers' performances this season as well before the end of the podcast. Okay, so first off, the new regulations, they're an improvement. They are cool. The last couple, it was a bit sceptical. We have had a couple boring races at times, but we've seen overtaking and races that weren't as boring as before, to be fair. But no, what we've seen recently, the regulations are an improvement. They're good. There are some issues, but the cars are able to follow and are able to overtake much easier than before as well. They look much better. The curved off wings, the all rounded, all of them have rounded noses, which everybody, aesthetically pleasing as well. And the winglets as well, cool. The big tyres, they look nice as well. The cars look much better as well, which is a bonus. But I do wish they were smaller. I wish they were sort of like 2000 and sort of early 2000s sized car rather than being a massive car. They look nice, but if they were a smaller car as well, that'd be really cool, and probably would allow for better racing at most tracks as well. But obviously safety features and so they have to be bigger cars nowadays. The drivers aren't as keen as me though. Obviously they're tougher to drive, they're not used to them yet, they are new cars. The visibility is lower, which isn't great, and something needs to be done about that really. That's probably due to the tyres, and I mean, don't even get me started in porpoising major talk point. This is the hardest season. Teams are starting to get a hang on it now. Obviously, we've got the sort of the floor stuff coming in at Spa as well, so it'll be interesting to see what they are like at Spa. But right now, the new regulations are a big win for Formula One and a great step as well. As for what we've seen on the track, well, as expected with a regulation change, we've had a lot of reliability issues, especially for Ferrari and a lot of with the power unit. But a lot of the we've seen side pods explode and things that we've just not seen before. We have seen different things happen. But the midfield battle behind the big three teams has been awesome. Every single car has got points at the halfway point of the season, which is ace. It really is. Having McLaren and Alpine both level 1 points in 81. And yeah, like I said, to have the other 5 teams all contending 4 points at some point in the season has been great. We've seen all the drivers bar Latifi and Hulkenberg score points this season now, and it's been awesome to see. Alex Albon's had a couple of good races where Williams has been competitive, like in Australia, and I think he's finished like above 12th most races now, or above 13th most races, which is not what we expected to see from Williams in Bahrain, but or from testing as well, because they're by far the worst car. But we've seen it's been very competitive. Different teams are good on different weeks, and it sets up a good story for each race, because it's not the same thing that we've seen like having previous seasons where it'll be like, okay, McLaren, then Alpine or Renault, and then it'll be Aston, and then it'll be Williams, and then Haas, or AlphaTauri in there as well. Yeah, it's been good. It's been nice to see. Speaking of AlphaTauri, they probably had a disappointing season. Pierre Gasly just isn't suited to this car. I think he's struggling. Obviously, Tsunoda's probably having an equal season with him. When last season he dominated him, and Yuki's been good this season. Yuki's been a really good, nice surprise for me. But AlphaTauri not really where I thought they'd be this season. Alfa Romeo and Haas. They've been great. I mean, they'd probably be putting up more of a fight if it wasn't for the Ferrari power unit failing. They probably could be level 1 points, maybe with Alpine and McLaren. There's a 30-point gap between Alfa and Alpine and McLaren. Think about how many retirements like Zhou Guanyu have had, and Bottas as well. Bottas has had many weekends ruined too. We could have a 4-way fight for P4 and constructors, which would be awesome. But either way, we have people contending for different places in the race, and it's great. It's been awesome. Aston Martin are an interesting team. Just going through really poor in qualifying most times as well. You see, like we've had on Seb come onto the radio after qualifying, saying what went wrong this time. But then in the race, the Aston Martin is a good race car as well, and Seb's got many points out of it as well. But all in all, really, Ferrari, man, you could be dominating this championship, really. But fair play to Red Bull. They've built a good car, and maybe not dominating, but I'd love to see a proper good battle if it wasn't for all the problems that Ferrari have had over the last couple of races. Because it would be nice if Charles won a couple of races. It would be nice to see a good championship battle, but it just isn't the case at the moment, unfortunately. But if Max does win his second World Championship, he's been the best driver in the last 2 years. You can't deny that. So that'd be cool to see as well. The Mercedes consistency is incredible, because it may just get him a surprising result. Maybe P2 in the constructors if Ferrari still can't get their act together. Because George in 5th with 128 points, only 5 behind Carlos Sainz. And Lewis 6th, just 19 points behind George. How often do we see the Mercedes drivers retire or make an error? Lewis made his first error in probably years, other than probably Silverstone last year. Lewis doesn't make errors very often. He made one in Austria last weekend. The Mercedes drivers have been so consistent, and the car, as terrible as it is, or as bad as it is for Mercedes standards, it's reliable, and that's always good in a championship like this one. And it may get him a couple of wins potentially towards the end of the season. But you've got to applaud Mercedes' consistency, and like it was in previous years. Onto the drivers, obviously Max is leading the championship. He's got a 38-point lead over Charles, 208 to 170 points. Perez in third with 151, and Sainz in fourth with 133. Russell 128, Lewis 109, like I was saying earlier. Lando P7 in the Drivers' Championship, always solid, having another decent season. If he gets a top car, I can see him maybe not being a world champion, potentially. He has got the pace, but I need to see, Lando will be a multiple race winner, surely, if he gets a good car underneath him. I'm certain of it. Esteban Ocon in P8, really going under the radar, having a great season. Yes, Fernando's been quicker and is probably the better driver of the two of them, but and has just been really unlucky. But Ocon staying, he's had a good season. Like I got onto it earlier, he's been great, and he just always seems to be in the right place at the right time. And then Valtteri Bottas in P9, he had a really Fernando's in P10 by the way. Bottas had a really strong start, but it's just another who's fallen back lately. He just is he's Zhou Guanyu's been competing with him quite a lot. I think he qualified in 3 races in a row. But also Valtteri, obviously, he's had the reliability issues with the Alpha. But Valtteri Bottas had a great season, really. But no, had an awesome start and just sort of tailed off a little bit. But Valtteri, yeah, good. Pierre Gasly having a bit of a down year, struggling with the car, like I was saying. K-Mag, he started with a bang. Had nothing to lose, really, come back into Formula 1. He's come back down to earth, obviously, as expected. He sort of had a bump at the start and then he's come back down to it. But K-Mag's still a great driver and he never should have left F1 in the first place. Daniel Ricciardo. His time at McLaren just isn't going right. I've got here, it's so shit, and it really is. I feel sorry for Daniel, but something just isn't right. Because he can't be this bad, because we've seen, he won the racing ones. Something just isn't right. And he was great that weekend as well in the sprint race. He was on it. Something just isn't right in that McLaren team, and until he leaves McLaren at some point, whether it be this year, next year, we won't know what it was, and we might never know what it was. Seb, he's doing great, dominating Stroll in less races, obviously, because he missed the first couple with COVID. If he goes out this year, then he's going out on a high. Imagine if he went out after the final year Ferrari, do you know what I mean? Yeah. And then last couple, Yuki Tsunoda, he's impressed me. A better sophomore season than Mick, really. He's had a better second season than expected. Although Mick has picked it up lately, Tsunoda's been really good. Zhou Guanyu, very unlucky. But impressing everyone, including me. He's been awesome, and I think he's been better than I thought he would. Obviously, we knew he was talented. Obviously, Alpine have had him, and he's won many races in F2. But we all thought Piastri would be better. Be interesting to see when Piastri's actually in Formula 1 next year. It'll be interesting to compare their careers going forward. Obviously, the two Alpine junior drivers. Lance Charles had his moments, but you've got to applaud him by saying he's one who's often in the right place and the right time towards the bottom end of the points. Obviously being dominated by Vettel in qualifying and stuff lately, but Stroll has his uses. Alex Albon's been awesome on his return. Obviously, there's been rumours of him going to McLaren, maybe because I think Albon probably does deserve a better car. That's an interesting one. I don't really know what happened there. It'd be cool to see Alex in the McLaren, but obviously I want Daniel in the McLaren too. Just because he's great for the sport, really, Daniel as well. And then Latifi, not so awesome, but he's been better. And obviously we had the goatee fee. Yeah, he had his performance in the wet in Silverstone, but other than that, Latifi's not been great. I can't lie. But that pretty much sums up this podcast, just as the car's going on. It's been fun. I've really enjoyed it. What's next for me? I don't really know, to be honest with you. I think we'll do a couple of podcasts before I go to uni in September. And after that, we might have some interviews and obviously some coursework stuff going on as well. But no, as for this podcast, it's not going anywhere. I'm still coming back. It'll be I think it'll be more podcasts like this rather than the F1 ones I did before. But I really enjoyed this one. The quality was really good. So it's been good talking about the F1 season. Final thoughts about what I think is going to happen. I think Max will win the championship. I think maybe Lewis and George... Actually, I think Lewis and George probably will both get a win towards the end of the season, knowing how good that Mercedes is getting now. Towards, the last couple of races, the Mercedes has been really good. So, yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing hopefully the two of them win races. Maybe Lando win a race, but with the way the McLaren's going, no, I can see Ocon or Alonso winning one as well, but potentially. But I think Max winning the championship by 40 points, a similar gap to now. But it has been a good season so far, and I hope the drama carries on into the end of the season. But no, that's pretty much it for the mid-season update for Formula 1. Yeah, thank you for listening to the podcast. It's been a bit all over the place, but it has been fun. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. If you're watching the video on YouTube as well, thank you for watching. Don't forget to leave a like or subscribe as well too for sort of the regular content, although it has been not regular the last month or so, but it will be. But no, thank you for listening and watching. If you are, I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have too. Goodbye. Oh, and I'll be back within the next couple of weeks probably. Maybe after the French Grand Prix, but I'm on holiday next week, so we'll see. But yeah, have a good rest of the afternoon or day or whatever you're doing, guys. But no, I hope if you're listening in the morning, have a good day. If you're listening in the afternoon, have a good evening or afternoon. Thank you for listening, guys. Goodbye.